I never thought the sound of Latin rap could make my blood run cold, but when I pulled up to my lake house that Friday evening and heard it blasting from inside, I knew something was terribly, terribly wrong. The drive from downtown Austin had taken me nearly an hour in rush hour traffic, and all I wanted was to sink into my porch swing with a glass of Pinot Grigio and watch the sunset paint Lake Travis in shades of amber and rose. Instead, I was staring at a front yard that looked like a tornado had swept through a frat party. My carefully cultivated beds of lavender and rosemary were trampled flat, crushed under the wheels of a massive pickup truck. Children's toys were scattered across the grass like confetti. Empty beer cans glinted in the fading sunlight. My name is Melanie Hart, and I'm a senior marketing executive at a tech startup in Austin. I'm 42 years old, and I've spent the last 15 years building my career. This lake house, with its floor-to-ceiling windows and private dock, was my sanctuary. I'd bought it 3 years ago with my own money, and I'd poured my soul into making it perfect. This wasn't just a house. It was proof that I'd made it. I pushed open the door, and the scene that greeted me was like something out of a nightmare. My younger sister Jess was sprawled on my cream-colored sofa with her bare feet on my coffee table. Her husband Mark was out on my deck, using my top-of-the-line Weber grill to cook cheap hot dogs, grease dripping onto my cedar planks. Their 3 kids were using my living room as their personal playground, jumping on furniture, their hands covered in nacho cheese. The smell hit me like a physical force. Stale beer, cheap cologne, burning meat, and the complete absence of the cedar and vanilla candles I always kept burning. My sanctuary smelled like a dive bar. For a moment, I just stood there frozen. Then Jess looked up from her phone, and the smug expression on her face told me everything I needed to know. She wasn't surprised. She wasn't embarrassed. She looked triumphant. I found my voice, though it came out shakier than I would have liked. "Jess, what the hell is going on here?" She laughed and set her beer down on my coffee table without a coaster. "This is family property, Melanie. Or did you forget that part? I bought this house, with my money. My name is on the deed." Jess stood up, and I noticed she was wearing one of my cashmere sweaters. "Your money, your name, always about you, isn't it? You ever think that maybe people with actual families deserve nice things too? Instead of this being some sterile showroom for a workaholic spinster?" The words hit me like a slap. We'd had our differences over the years, but this was vicious in a way that took my breath away. I tried to push past her to turn off the music, but Mark came in from the deck, his bulk filling the doorway. "Hey now, sister-in-law, let's all just calm down here. The kids are just having a little fun." His tone was casual, friendly even, but there was an edge underneath that made my skin crawl. One of the kids threw his ball and it smashed directly into a ceramic vase I'd bought in Santa Fe. It shattered, pieces scattering across my floor. The boy didn't apologize, he just laughed. Mark grinned. Jess went back to her phone. Something inside me snapped. I turned and headed for my office at the back of the house where I kept all my important documents. The door was supposed to be locked, but the lock had been forced, the wood splintered. My office looked ransacked. And there, spread out on my desk, was a stack of documents that made my blood run cold. A petition for transfer of property ownership with Jess's name on it, claiming I was unable to properly maintain the property due to mental and emotional instability. Attached was a psychological evaluation I'd never participated in, signed by a Dr. Richard Beaumont I'd never heard of, stating I was suffering from severe work-related stress and paranoid delusions, that I was not competent to manage major assets. It was a complete fabrication, but it looked official. Letterhead, stamp, signature. Someone had gone to significant effort to make this look legitimate. There was more. Email printouts between Jess and someone listed as a legal consultant, discussing strategies for expediting the transfer. An email from Jess saying, "She's always alone, always at work. It shouldn't be hard to convince people she's losing it." I had my phone out, photographing everything with shaking hands, when Jess burst into the office. "You have no right to go through those papers. Those are private." "Private?" I backed away, taking more pictures. "You're trying to have me declared incompetent. You're trying to steal my house." Mark grabbed for my phone. I yanked my arm back and shoved him as hard as I could. His grip loosened just enough. I ran through my living room, past the stunned kids, out to my car. I could hear Jess screaming behind me, cursing, calling me names. I got in, locked the doors, and peeled out so fast my tires left marks. I drove blindly, my heart hammering. I ended up in a HEB parking lot in Lakeway, trying to calm down enough to think clearly. The first thing I did was call my bank and freeze all my accounts. Then I opened a new account and transferred the bulk of my savings into it. If Jess thought she was going to clean me out while she stole my house, she had another thing coming. Next, I searched for the best civil litigation attorney in Austin. The name Marcus Thorne came up repeatedly, articles about multi-million-dollar victories. I called his office, expecting to get an appointment in weeks, but to my surprise, he answered directly. I explained the situation, trying to keep my voice steady despite sitting in a parking lot, effectively homeless. "I can be in your office Monday morning," I said. "I have documentation, photos of forged documents. I need someone who can help me make sure they pay for what they've done." There was a pause, then Marcus said, "I have an opening tomorrow morning at 9. Saturday, I know, but something tells me you don't want to wait." I spent that night in a hotel in downtown Austin. I didn't sleep much, but along with the hurt and shock, something else was growing inside me. Something cold and hard and focused. I'd spent my whole life being the responsible one, lending Jess money, helping with her rent when Mark lost jobs, buying Christmas presents for her kids, and this was how she repaid me. By morning, I knew exactly what I wanted. Marcus's office was downtown, all glass and minimalist furniture. He was younger than I'd expected, maybe 50, with silver hair and sharp blue eyes. "Tell me everything," he said. I did. I showed him the photos of the forged evaluation, the emails discussing the property transfer scheme. His expression grew colder with each one. When I finished, he looked at me in silence. Then he said, "They're not just trying to take your house. They're trying to destroy your reputation, your credibility. How far are you willing to go to stop them?" I didn't hesitate. "I want them to lose everything. I want them prosecuted. I want my house back, and I want them to pay for every bit of damage, as far as it takes." He smiled, and it wasn't a nice smile. "Then let's talk strategy. But first, do you have any security system in your house?" I started to say no, then stopped. Actually, yes. I had cameras installed 6 months ago after a break-in in the neighborhood. Discrete ones, built into light fixtures. They record to cloud storage. Marcus's smile widened. "Ms. Hart, I think you just gave me everything I need. Can you access those recordings?" I pulled out my phone and logged into the security app. There were hundreds of hours of footage. I started scrolling back, and what I found made me feel sick and triumphant all at once. Over the next hour, we watched selected clips. Jess and Mark letting themselves into my house 3 weeks ago, going through my office, discussing their plan. In one clip, Jess was telling Mark, "She's always alone, always working. Nobody's going to question it if we say she's mentally unstable. No husband, no kids, barely any friends. We paint her as a lonely workaholic cracking under pressure, and boom, we get the house." In another, Mark was deliberately sabotaging my sprinkler system, then laughing about blaming it on poor maintenance. The worst was Jess coaching her kids. "If anyone asks, you tell them Aunt Melanie is mean, and she yells a lot and she forgets things. Can you remember that?" And the kids repeated it back like a nursery rhyme. Marcus paused the video. "Game over, Ms. Hart. We have everything we need. Video evidence of planning fraud, property damage, and coaching children to lie. Now here's what we're going to do." He laid out a plan that was beautiful in its thoroughness. We weren't just filing complaints and lawsuits, we were making a statement. The next 2 days were a whirlwind. By Monday afternoon, We had criminal complaints filed with the Travis County Sheriff's Office for fraud, forgery, and property damage. We had a civil lawsuit filed for damages over $500,000, and we had an emergency eviction order signed by a judge. But we didn't serve it right away. Marcus had a better idea. Let them get comfortable, then we hit them when they least expect it, with witnesses. We waited. We monitored the cameras and watched them settle into my house like they owned it. Jess was posting Facebook pictures from my deck, captions about family time at the lake. On Thursday, Marcus called. They're having a party tomorrow night, about 20 people. We'll serve them then, in front of everyone. I've arranged for 2 sheriff's deputies. This is going to be very public and very humiliating. Are you ready? I'd never been more ready for anything in my life. The next evening, I drove to my lake house with Marcus right behind me. 2 sheriff's deputies met us there. As we pulled up, I could see cars everywhere, hear music and laughter from inside. Marcus rang the doorbell. Mark answered, and his smile died when he saw the deputies. Mark Stevens, the deputy said. We have an emergency eviction order and a notice of criminal investigation for fraud and forgery. You need to vacate these premises immediately. You have 1 hour. The noise inside stopped. People gathered at the door, staring. Jess pushed through the crowd, her face flushing when she saw me with Marcus and the deputies. What the hell do you think you're doing? She shrieked. You can't just kick us out. Marcus stepped forward. There absolutely are procedures, Mrs. Stevens, and we've followed every one. You obtained access through fraud. You forged documents to steal this property. You caused significant damage. We have video evidence of all of it, including you coaching your children to lie. So yes, we can kick you out, and we're pressing criminal charges. The crowd had gone silent. Phones were out, probably recording. This was going to be all over social media, and that was exactly what I wanted. Jess turned to me, her face twisted with rage. You vindictive bitch! You're destroying our family! I walked up to her slowly. No, Jess. You did that when you decided to commit fraud. When you taught your children that lying and stealing were acceptable. This isn't about me being vindictive. This is about consequences. The deputies were firm. Jess's guests left in embarrassment. Mark tried to stand up to the deputy, but backed down when the deputy put a hand on his weapon. I watched from outside as they scrambled to pack, shoving clothes into garbage bags, the kids crying and confused. When the hour was up, the deputies did a final walkthrough. The house was a disaster, but it was mine again. As Jess carried the last bag to their car, she turned to look at me. I hope you're happy. I hope you enjoy your precious house all alone. I could have let it go, but I was so tired of being the bigger person. I am happy, Jess. Happier than I've been in years. I'll finally be free of toxic people who only wanted to use me. She got in the car without another word and drove away. But that was just the beginning. The civil lawsuit was aggressive. We were suing for property damage, emotional distress, defamation, legal fees, and punitive damages. Over $600,000. The criminal investigation moved quickly with the video evidence. They tracked down Dr. Beaumont, who turned out to be a friend of Mark's with no medical credentials. He'd created the fake evaluation for $500 and flipped immediately, confessing everything. Within 2 weeks, the story spread. A local news station ran a piece about property fraud. Mark's employer saw the coverage and fired him. The court froze Jess and Mark's assets. With Mark out of work and legal fees piling up, they were drowning. Their friends distanced themselves. Some even reached out to me, apologizing, offering to testify on my behalf. Jess's Facebook went silent, then disappeared entirely. I spent weeks cleaning and repairing my house, erasing every trace of them. New locks, upgraded security, professional cleaning. Every bit of work felt like reclaiming something stolen. 3 months later, I was sitting on my deck one evening when I heard a car pull up. Jess got out of an old Honda that looked ready to die. She looked terrible, gaunt with dark circles under her eyes. She stood at the property line, not crossing it. You're violating the restraining order, I said. I know. I just needed to talk to you one time. We're going to lose everything, Mel. The house, our savings, everything. Mark can't find work. The kids are going to end up in foster care. You're destroying my children's future. I felt nothing. No sympathy, no guilt. Your children's future? Were you thinking about their future when you taught them to lie? When you showed them stealing was okay? This isn't revenge. This is the consequence of your choices. You gambled on fraud and you lost. That's on you. Our kids, she whispered. I am thinking about them. Maybe the best thing is they learn right now that actions have consequences. But that's not my responsibility, Jess. You made your choices. I turned and walked back inside, closed the sliding glass door, locked it with a firm click. I called Marcus immediately and reported the violation. The civil trial happened 4 months after the eviction. Marcus was brilliant, presenting the evidence methodically. The jury watched the security footage with horror. The fake doctor testified. I testified about the trauma, the violation of trust. The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours. They found in my favor on every count and awarded me $540,000. The judge added another $120,000 in legal fees. To collect, the court ordered the sale of their house. It was worth about $200,000 after the mortgage. The proceeds went to pay their debt to me. It wasn't enough, so the court garnished Mark's future wages for 10 years. A lien was placed on any future assets. The criminal trial came 2 months later. With the overwhelming evidence, they both pleaded guilty. Mark got 18 months in county jail. Jess got 2 years. Their kids went to live with Mark's elderly parents in a small town outside San Antonio. I heard the kids were growing up poor, with the stigma of parents in jail. Part of me felt bad for them, but mostly I felt they were learning about the real cost of dishonesty. Some relatives reached out, apologizing for not being there. A few sided with Jess, saying I should have been more forgiving. I blocked them without a second thought. 6 months after that final confrontation, I was finally able to truly relax in my home. Repairs were complete, new security system installed. I'd redecorated rooms with bad memories. I'd also started actually using the house as intended. Long weekends working remotely from my deck. Dinner parties with real friends. I even started dating someone, a fellow executive who understood my independence. My therapist, Dr. Chen, helped me process everything. We talked about boundaries, about the difference between being kind and being a doormat. She helped me understand that cutting off Jess wasn't cruel, it was self-preservation. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for yourself is walk away from people who hurt you, even if they're family, she said. A year after the eviction, I was thriving. Promotion to VP of Marketing with a significant raise. My relationship was healthy and based on mutual respect. My friendships had deepened. One Sunday afternoon, my phone buzzed. Court notification. Jess had been released after 16 months, out early for good behavior. Mark still had 2 months left. I stared at the notification, waiting to feel something. Anxiety that she'd try to contact me again. But I felt nothing except mild curiosity about her life now. Felony record, making employment impossible, hundreds of thousands in debt, marriage likely damaged beyond repair, kids growing up with shame. And me? I'd gotten everything back and more. My home, my peace of mind, my sense of self-worth. I'd learned that I didn't need anyone's approval to live a fulfilling life. I deleted the notification and went back to my book. 2 years after it all began, I hosted my 45th birthday celebration at the lake house. Friends from work, from college, my partner David who'd moved in 6 months earlier, even Marcus who'd become a genuine friend. We grilled on my deck, laughed, told stories, watched the sunset. Someone made a toast about my resilience, and everyone raised their glasses. Standing there surrounded by people who genuinely cared about me, I felt a contentment I'd never known before. This was what I'd been working toward. Not just a beautiful house or successful career, but a life filled with people who valued me, who respected my boundaries. Later that night, after everyone left and David was inside doing dishes, I stood alone on my deck, looking out at the dark lake. Lights twinkled along the shore. A gentle breeze carried the scent of cedar and water. Everything was peaceful, exactly as it should be. I thought about Jess one last time, not with anger, but with distant pity. She'd had opportunities, chances to make different choices. She'd chosen resentment and dishonesty, and it had cost her everything. I'd chosen differently. When faced with betrayal, I'd chosen to fight back, to protect what was mine, to refuse to be a victim. Some might call that vindictive. I called it justice. I called it understanding my worth and refusing to let anyone diminish it. David came out with 2 glasses of wine. He put his arm around my shoulders, and we stood there together in comfortable silence. "You okay?" he asked. I took a sip of wine and smiled, a real smile. "I'm perfect," I said, and I meant it. The lock on my door was secure. My boundaries were firm. My life was my own. And anyone who thought they could take that from me had learned exactly what I was capable of when pushed too far. I'd won. Completely and utterly. Not just the legal battles, but something more important. I'd won back myself, my peace, my power. And that victory was sweeter than any revenge could ever be. The lake house stood behind me, every light blazing warm and golden. My sanctuary, my achievement, my proof that hard work and determination could triumph over jealousy and dishonesty. And as I stood there in the darkness, safe and content, and surrounded by love, I knew with absolute certainty that I'd never let anyone make me feel less than worthy ever again. This was my story, my victory, my life, and it was beautiful.